Hey, y'all. Welcome to pop-up number 2 for Gabfocus this year. Melissa, how you doing?
I'm just excited that we got another pop-up scheduled, and yeah, it's almost Christmas, so very happy. It's good.
We squeezing them in right here before the end
Last
of the
minute.
year. This was tough to do, but I'm very thankful that Denise and Kevin, y'all can join us here for another pop-up event because the first conversation was not enough. We had to do round 2. So excited to have y'all here. It's going to be an absolute blast. So of course, this is optimizing your day to day, part 2. If you missed the first part, of course, check it out on the Gabfocus podcast or on the Resource Center. But today's experts are no strangers to the Gabfocus stage. Denise, happy Thursday. How are you, sister?
I'm doing pretty good, Tommy. How are you doing?
I'm so great. It looks like you've got some fans in the audience. But super stoked to have you back. And of course, Kevin, manager of the year. Shout out, Georgia. Welcome, man. How you
Thank
doing?
you. I'm doing well. How are y'all?
So great. Glad to have both of
Good.
y'all, man. I think this is going to be a good show. And we'll see. Maybe there's enough content for a pop-up number 3, but we're going to do our best to stay on
If so,
track
it's going to be
today.
in 2024.
Yes, exactly. We're not going to squeeze another one in
Don't have the time.
this year. But of course, Gabfocus brought to you by the crews at Lighthouse Storage Solutions and Storage Pug right here in Knoxville. If this is your first time, welcome. This is our pop-up event, the second of the year. Typically, the pop-up events happen because Melissa and I can seem to only go through like the first third of the agenda every week.
Yeah.
And so it's because honestly, it's really fun because the speakers are dropping like serious knowledge and lots of great content. But like I said, if this is your first time, this is how the sessions are set up. We go for about an hour. Melissa and I will take turns asking questions that were pre-submitted, or you can ask your own questions using the Q&A tool right down below. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about processes in tech. We're going to talk about marketing when it comes to operations. We're going to talk about building processes. We're going to do the live Q&A. And of course, we're going to jump into question of the week. And if you missed it today, Lobby Talk opens about 30 minutes before the show, and we go have a lively conversation. Today, we talked about how many lights go on a Christmas tree. We talked about actually a really cool question, Garrett. Thanks for sending that in, which is like, what's your operational biggest pain points? And shout out Julie for sharing what they're dealing with which is collecting signatures, which we chatted about right before. So Denise, Kevin, thanks for the great ideas. Alrighty, so today's agenda, we got it here. Are we ready to jump in?
I think we are.
Let's do it. All right, y'all, let's get started.
You want to lead us off?
Let's do it. Yeah. So kind of the guiding questions here, right? So as we go through these different topics, kind of keep this in mind, the guiding questions of like, how do we do it the right way? Right? What's like the best practice way of doing it? What is the how do you say it? What are the pitfalls of doing it that way, right? And of course, if you're doing it, how do you track it and measure it? And then of course, most importantly, probably is like, how do you improve and grow on it? So as we touch on all of these topics today, those will kind of be our guiding questions as we go through it. So let's start with processes and technology, and probably one of the most important pieces of tech and processes is communications. So throw it out to our experts here. When it comes to communications, how do you do it the right way?
You want me to go first, Kevin, or do you want to go
We'll,
first?
we'll let you take that one first.
Is there a right way? I mean, used to back in 1993, in your little office, people would come visit you or they would call you on the phone. That was it, and life was easy. Now we have Slack, Google Chat, Yelp questions, Facebook questions, Google questions, text, email, all kinds of different forms of communication with your customers, your potential customers, your staff members. So it's a lot. I think the right way is to pick your forms of communication and stick with those. If you don't want Yelp, Google, and Facebook, turn one of them off. I have all of ours open for all locations, and it's a lot. It's not like it used to be when they would just come and see you or call you on the phone. So the technology part of communication has changed my entire life.
And that actually applies to how you communicate with your tenants and with your employees.
That's right.
Because the employees are texting and emailing and calling and Facebook messaging and all those things too, and Slack or Monday.com or whatever it is. And so it can get really difficult to like, okay, let's streamline this. So I have one place or a couple of places to go check instead of 32. So
One thing we've been able to do, Melissa, is create a group within our Google suite. So everything from Ring Central and Storage Pug goes into this group where we're not getting the messages on our phone, but we're getting them in that group email chain. So
okay.
Thanksgiving, I was on call for all of the properties all by myself. Nope, Jason helped me. I take that back. Jason,
He's in the audience. He's like, wait a minute, Denise.
hey,
I was there with you, sister.
and we split the bonus to $150 each. It was awesome. But all we had to do was go to that group. We didn't have to check the phones. We didn't have to check email. We just had to have that group pulled up on our screen.
Yeah,
That's
that's a good
cool.
point. You're able to still meet all of the different ways that your customers communicate, but you've just learned a way that works for your business and for your group to funnel it down into the one or two that you want to be responsible for checking. And I love that.
That's brilliant. And
Do
I
you-
see a lot of names in here that I know y'all use Google Workspace
Mhm.
for your email. And yeah, take advantage of those groups in case you're not. It's a huge benefit. Like what Denise is saying. That's a great idea.
Kevin, what do you guys do?
I will add to what Denise said about, funneling it into what works best for your business, but make sure that you are checking on those things regularly and replying back to those customers who are reaching out through different avenues rather than just coming in your business, calling. If you have Google turned on, you might want to make sure you're replying to those instead of just letting them sit stagnant.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure you're still addressing it all. And even on your for those more social platforms, you can use a reputation management group like Bird Eye or something like that that will funnel all of those for you and give you one area where you can respond back and forth. So yeah.
Julie in the comment section here, they use an app called Woven, WOVEN, for all of their employees to chat in our schedules. That's awesome to have a centralized place. Denise, I believe y'all use Slack internally over at Self Storage Science.
We were using Slack, and then our brilliant Allison reminded me that we were already paying for Google Suite, so we did Slack. And now we're using Google Chat since we were paying for both. We decided to just pay for one.
Well, there you go. Smart. Why pay for two when you can just pay for one? That's
So
sound logic to me.
And it works the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about those processes and technology around the lien process. What do you guys do? And there's more options I feel like coming up every day. So what are you guys doing for liens?
We use late lien for all of our initial letters to be sent out, emails, and then we have things set up in SiteLink that automatically text. Make sure you call though. That would be my number one. Call those tenants. Try to stay in touch with them. There's a lot of them that any time that I just took over this new store, like I said, and they were used to being called constantly. I did not call as much at my store here in Perry, so I'm relearning to call, and keep in touch, because there's a lot that they'll use excuses of I didn't receive that letter, I don't use that email anymore, and of course it's always our fault as the one behind the desk. So make sure you're using every avenue that you can to get in touch with those tenants.
When do you have late to lien set up? Is it from the very first late notice?
They take
Or-
over at the very first late notice. For us,
Okay.
they're actually, if anybody is looking at using late to lien, they're customizable. They'll take over any day that you want them to. We have them take over at 14 days past due. And so they take over and go through the whole process for us. So
Okay. Very cool.
There you go. Yeah. Denise, what's y'all's lien process look like at Self Storage Science?
So we handle all of our liens in-house. We have an expert in-house who handles most of them. She puts everything in monday.com. So I'm able to log into monday.com instead of, texting or chatting and saying, when's the next auction? So I can just pull it up. All of the documents are housed in our Google Drive. So the manager takes the photos, puts the auction tag on, all the photos go there. But y'all remember, I'm from the days where I once sold a 1985 Maserati for $540 in a live auction. So all of this technology, I mean, to me, you were all born in it, and I was not, but we're still using all of the technology. So we were doing live auctions up until, I don't even know, the late 2010, 2012.
So that goes into auctions. What technology are you guys using for your auctions?
We, of course, monday.com, we upload everything into storageauctions.com. So all of them are online now, at least. They weren't, but they are now.
So you are using an online auction platform. Okay.
Yes. And very glad to be using an online auction platform.
Yes. Which one is it that you all use?
Storage auctions.
Storage auctions.
Okay. What about you guys, Kevin?
we use Storage Treasures.
Okay. Okay.
We'll link out. I'm gonna link all of these services that we've been chatting in the comment in case people
Yeah.
need to find these folks. And Kevin, y'all use Storage Treasures?
We do.
Yeah. How long have you been taking advantage of online auctions?
Actually, I've been with the company 6 years now, about to go in my 7th, and we've used it. They started using it a couple months before I came on board.
Oh
So
wow. Okay. That's
about
all you've ever known.
6 years now. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, I think that's cool to hear y'all, kind of embracing technology. Let's talk about the pitfalls of that. Like, have you all, specifically in the lien and the auction process, what are some of the pitfalls that that y'all have learned either through trial and error and blood, sweat, and tears, or just things that are things that everyone should be watching out for?
Of course, like Denise was saying, I mean, I was born into technology, so I would rather, instead of someone, picking up the phone and calling all the time, harassing me to pay a bill, I would much rather have it, just delivered to me via text message, email. But you have to keep in mind, not everyone is like that. So to give them different options, different avenues of ways to contact your tenants with auctions, or even like you were saying, I've had people that stop in and ask how we do our auctions. You tell them it's online, and they blow up at you because you don't do an in-person auction anymore. And so there's benefits, there's cons and pros to each situation there.
I agree with you, Kevin, on that. And even as far as managers, some managers do not embrace technology. So if I've got a manager who's not real tech savvy, and I say, I want you to take all these pictures, use this auction checklist, upload everything into the Google Drive,
Yep.
and then put it in monday.com, they're going to think I'm speaking a foreign language. So that's why, we have one designated person who does it all.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the pitfalls, especially when you're dealing with something as specific as the lien process and the auctions that are so heavily regulated anyway, I think there's the danger of just putting it in this automated system and just letting it do all the work and not having a set of eyes on it, because information can be entered incorrectly, and human error happens. And so I think there's the danger of just, oh well, that's what the system said to do. So I love the fact that Denise has an expert on staff that's just going back through every single auction and making sure that human eyes have been on it and know that
Yes.
it's been handled right from A to Z. I love that extra attention. So,
Yeah, no, I think that extra love and care, I think, is a
mhm.
great advice for everyone who was doing that. So that's killer. So touched on that. So let's move a little bit to like vendor contractor management, right? And I think you can talk about any stage in that, right? So like your vendors, like your different, software partners, your hardware partners, but even down to contractors. I think a lot of operations are leaning on like 1099, or at the beginning, in lobby talk we talked about part-time support, right? So how do you do all of these things the right way? And while you're talking about that, I guess on the flip side, like what are some of the pitfalls to avoid as you're managing your different vendors and contacts and contractors?
So I can answer to that. The managers usually hire the vendors and provide the vendor sheet and the W-9, whatever documentation we need to make sure the vendor is properly set up. And we have one person who pays the bills, but once the work is done, the managers send me and Allison and Kim the invoice to review. And then that is put into Dropbox into an unpaid invoices folder. So once that invoice from the vendor is in the unpaid invoices folder, the person who pays the bills know that it has been approved. So the manager verifies the vendor did the work, sends us the invoice, we approve it. It's all easy.
That's
Okay.
cool.
That is something for me. I do not take care of any of that in our company. My owners handle all of that directly. So
How do y'all make sure that your vendors like deliver on the services, right? Like what are some of the checks and balances there that you make sure that who whatever it is, whether it's a recurring service or a one-time HVAC person, like how do you all, at scale, how do you go about making sure that the work that you're paying for gets done?
Yeah,
one
it's
of
got
the
to be
things I
boots
can
on the
answer,
ground. Go ahead,
go
Kevin.
ahead.
It
One
has
of
to
the
be
things I
having
can,
boots on the.
go ahead.
Look at us.
It's you.
I know it's always me. You've got to have boots and eyes on the ground, be it a manager or someone that you've hired, to just check on the property if it's a remote property. Ours are about half and half remote, half managed. We love videos from our boots on the ground. We love pictures from our managers sometimes, not when it's a dumpster overflowing with boxes first thing in the morning, but um, we get videos and pictures.
Videos and pictures. And then how are they, just to get really tactile with it, like how are they getting you the videos and pictures? Are they uploading it to Monday or Dropbox or some of these tools, or are they texting? Are they emailing? What's the mechanism? How do you guys do it?
Yeah, all of them. They send them to us in all different forms and fashions. I could lie and tell you we're more organized than that, but I'm the receiver, not the sender. Just know.
So all the senders in Denise's group, make her life easier, please. That's awesome. That's amazing. So Kevin, how, like, I guess same question to you. Like, how do you all, ensure that the work gets done across all the different facilities that y'all manage?
Just make sure you keep a fresh set of eyes on your property every day. Don't get used to going in and saying, oh, well, I've got to do another property check today, and just make it a routine thing. Make sure things are being done especially that you're paying for. One thing that, funny story, right after I started a couple years back, the pest control company we had servicing every month, I really wasn't happy with them. Because of course, I have another remote property that I go check out first thing in the morning. And so I would go check that property, and then I'd come into my office and I'd have an invoice through my Dropbox saying that they have done all the bait box checks, installed bait in them, and that they've come and sprayed in my office. And so I began calling, and I'm like, there was no way you could have sprayed in my office. I wasn't there. And so it turns out I had another pest control company come and say, hey, do you mind if we just take a look around your property with you? So I said, sure, let's walk. And so they began opening each of my bait boxes, and empty, empty, empty.
Yeah.
And I said, this is funny. I just had it serviced literally yesterday. They came. And so I have that pretty much taught me right there. Keep an eye on that type of stuff. I mean, that was $75 every month we were paying out, that who knows how long we were not getting that service for. So I would say my top piece of advice is, if you have a manager, like Denise said, boots on the ground, make sure they're keeping an eye on different things like that.
Well, and not only just to keep an eye on it, but the manager should actually know, what are the expectations? Does your contract actually say that they're going to refill bait boxes every single month? Does your lawn care
Exactly.
contract say that they're going to, change out the flowers in the spring? Like, what? Because if they don't know what the expectations are, they could look at it and say, oh yeah, I think they're doing a fine job. But maybe
Exactly.
they're supposed to be doing, 3 other things that keep getting overlooked because you don't know to hold them accountable to that. So communication with your front line is, I don't know how you function without doing that. So, all right. So let's talk about rate management, because everybody does rate management, right? We're all raising those rates and implementing all these different things. So who's in charge? How do you handle it? And what's the pros and cons of what you're doing?
Yeah, me and Jason and Allison are in charge of rate management, no one else. And rate management is enabled on every software that we're using, but we verify which rates and how much we want to raise once a month.
So you let the automation kind of tell you this is what is recommended, and then you go through and actually look at each one of them and say yes, 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 no, yes, and make all those decisions after that.
That's right.
I like it.
And we do the same thing as Denise. We have it switched on in the software. Typically, Eric and I review them for each of our facilities with our company, go through and say, yes, no, that's a problem customer. Let's do a few dollars more on that one. And so, but yes, we do it the same way. I would say, try and be as fair as you can with that. You don't know how many people that you have that are friends that are renting the same size unit, that have been renting it for the same amount of time. And also another thing, keep an eye out for those that have multiple units, even of the same size. Make sure you're not, $130 on one 10 by 30 and 270 on another. I know those are crazy numbers apart, but in all seriousness, I've taken over stores that you go through and you see that, and it's like, when they call you and say, why is my rate like this? It's like, well, let me take a look at that for you. You really don't have an answer for them, other than the last person wasn't doing their job.
Yeah. Sorry, we've been giving you a deal on only one of them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Melissa,
for that rate increase.
Yeah. And I think that, total AI rate management works for larger companies or different people than me and Kevin. We still have the human aspect of having to deal with our customers. Neither one of us are sitting in a big fancy sky-rise executive office. We roll our sleeves up and take care of people just like our managers. And I'm not ready to turn my clients' checkbooks over to a computer.
Right.
Well, and I mean, automated systems still have snags in them. I've had situations happen before with different softwares where the automated report was like, whoa, you pulled the wrong set of people, and it was just a glitch in the system. And had a person not had eyes on it, we would have had a big problem, because people would have gotten rate increases and, they just moved in or something like that. So you've still got to watch the automation. I don't care how big you get. There's got to be somebody somewhere sitting at a desk that, or maybe it's the frontline manager that gets their rate increases, that report before they actually go out, and says, yep, I verified everything for my store. This list actually looks good. Let's pull the trigger on this. That's one of those things, kind of back with the liens. I really think a person really needs to be involved in rate management. So along with rate management, how often are you guys doing rate increases now? Are we yearly, 10 months? Where are you guys at?
We review about 9 to 12 months. Every 9 to 12.
A tenant that rented 180 days ago will first start looking at where their rates are compared to street rates. But for the most part, seasoned tenant is once a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the
Okay.
comments here, we have annual. Looks like Rachel's facility does 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think I love this the conversation around like the human element, the human touch, right? And how that's a pitfall if you just want to rely on just some spreadsheet or some automated tool to tell you what to do with your business and how you treat your customers. I think,
Yeah.
Kevin, you said something at the top of the call. Is like you're in an interesting situation because you are the front of the line. You are, when someone's happy, they're telling you, but when they're mad and angry, they're also telling you. And
Yes.
so like, how do you like, and I imagine you're not, I see a lot of names in the in the attendance today, and I know a lot of these people, and they are also on the front line. So like, what advice do you have for them as it relates to rate management, specifically increasing someone's rates? And you're the person that they either call or drive up and talk to you person to person. Like, what are some tips and
Yeah.
tricks, and how do you deal with that, or do you not? Do you just go in a cave and cry? And that's okay too.
Perfectly
I would
acceptable.
say, exactly. I would say, no matter how tough that customer gets with you, remember who you work for. That is one of the things that I've seen it, and it drives me insane to see a manager say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I know that you're going through a tough time. Let me see what I can do for you. My owners are terrible people. They're just sitting there trying to gouge. And I've seen that with managers before. So make sure that your manager, the front line, is working for you first of all. If you're an owner, if you're a manager, make sure you're working for your owner. I would say that's the most important. Of course, always be compassionate towards that tenant. You never know what they're going through, if they're having a hard time financially, and see if there is anything you could do for them. See when the last rate increase was, but don't just automatically say, "Hey, we're going to drop that right now." I would say there's a middle ground. Of course, I have those tenants that are going to come in every month that have the same sob story every month. They always come in with, "I can't pay my bill this month. Can't pay my bill." Those are the type, they're going to have that sob story no matter what. So I would say that's the most important thing, is make sure you're taking care of your owners if you are a manager.
And Tommy, I would just like to say, as a supervisor level, making it easy for the managers to deal with rate increases is crucial to it just being an everyday thing. So it's not likely that any of our properties are going to have a massive amount of rate increases. We're going to have 10, 15, maybe 30 a month. Every single month, someone's rent is being raised, and the managers are getting used to answering the hard questions from the tenants, or but they don't have to do 4, 5, 600 at one time.
Right. And I would say that's the best way to do a rate increase as well. Just like Denise said, make sure you're doing those every month. Not only does that help space them out, but it does help your manager building up their confidence level with that. That's one of those things, and that's really with anything as a manager. If you're not doing something consistently, once that comes along, it takes a little bit longer to grasp that. And how do I handle this now? So if you can help your manager by doing that, keeping it consistent, it really does help build up a confidence.
That's
Mhm.
killer. Yeah. So a couple questions here I'd love to ask. And honest, before I do though, Kevin, I love that idea of building up the confidence of just repetition and just,
Mhm.
whatever the activity is, and especially activities that aren't fun, and but in its nature, right? So it sounds like you're speaking from experience there, which
Yes.
we appreciate. But Rhonda's question is there a preferred vendor or software that you all use for competitor price comparison? What are we using out there? What's in the marketplace that's nice? Or are y'all just manually loading up websites and calling people? So what are y'all using?
I have a wonderful staff member named Caitlin, and she and I have special projects we work on without a third party.
Okay, so Caitlin is the software, and
I
all
would say the
right.
same thing there. Eric or myself, we sit down and take a look at those around us. I like to really even befriend those in my market. It's not a bad idea to be friends with your competition. It's really not. I like to befriend them, get to know how they run their business, what they're doing. And in that, most people's prices, they're online now anyway. So, but when we have used a website, we've used Radius to compare pricing. But that's normally right when we take over, right when I take over a facility, I like to get a Radius report and then just see all of the facilities around me, what they're offering, and then just go from there. But I would say the biggest thing, we do ours in house, and just keeping a consistent check on that.
That's cool. That makes sense. And then we're backtracking a teeny bit, but Rhonda also had another question earlier about this is directed to Denise. Hey, so how do you have a process to catalog all the pictures and videos, especially damage to walls, doors, etc.? Since you are the receiver of all pictures, what's your process for cataloging said pictures and videos?
We keep everything in Google Drive. Every single thing that we have is in our shared Google Drive. And if it's not there, it's in Dropbox.
Okay.
All right.
But either way,
Seems
it's all electronically, all electronic.
Okay. There was one comment that got put in the chat about the rate management that I did want to ask. Do you raise current rates over asking rates? It's a big deal right now with REITs in many markets, charging very low asking rates and then getting the people in the door. And then, obviously those rates go through the roof. So how do you guys handle that aspect of the rate increases?
I would like to say that we have lowered some of our street rates. And that does not affect our current tenants. So technically, yes, some of our street rates are lower. Kevin, you caught what I was saying there.
yes.
So our street rates may be lower because of inventory. It's just like a hotel. If I've got 100 rooms available, my rate's going to be lower. I'm sorry if you rented it when I didn't have any rooms available, but this is what your price is.
Mhm.
I'm not going to raise their rate above street rate. I know some people do that. We don't, but I will lower my street rate to get more people in.
Right. Okay. I think that's a good answer. I like
Yeah.
it.
Right on.
So I think we are on discounts. Is that where we are?
Yes, that is where we are, following along the agenda here. So yeah, so discounts. Do y'all love them? Do y'all hate them? Do you swear by them? Do you hate, well, talk to us about discounts.
Right now, it doesn't matter what you like. You got to do them. Of course, they're not going to be anyone's favorite thing to sit there and give out revenue, but it is a must right now. I would say, of course, again, and we do it in house. We just sit there and look every week, every month, make sure you're keeping in touch with what your competitors are doing, and either match or do a little more than what they're doing to stay competitive.
What about you guys, Denise?
Yeah, I don't like them. That was the question, right?
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. But I also don't like decreased occupancy,
Mm,
Yeah.
and I certainly don't want decreased income. We worked really hard the last 3 years to manage rates really, really well. So the income has maintained a very good level while we're watching occupancy drop off at some locations.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of holding my breath right now till March, and I may have to do something different if some of the markets don't pick up a little bit.
yeah. Is there a particular kind of discount that y'all typically use when you find yourself in a in a situation where you need to increase occupancy in a tight window? So Julie says that they run 50% off the first 3 full months at her facilities. Kevin, Denise, what kind of discounts do y'all typically run?
We typically do 50% off first 2 months, if anything. So we do have one facility that we just did an expansion at, and we are flooded with 10 by 10s right now. And so we're doing 50% off 3 months at that one, just to give one extra month. I would say, just from experience, I don't really care for first month free or second or first full month free, especially if you're first month billing. It's kind of hard to work around those type of discounts anyway. But I would say first 50% off first 2 months would be one of my favorite discounts that we do.
Yeah. We do half off first 3 month at some locations if we're in lease up. But
Okay.
what I've been doing lately is I've just been looking at every single vacancy report, and I'm picking the sizes I have 10 or more of, and we're lowering the web rate. So if I have a 10 by 10 and I've got 50 available, that 10 by 10 is going to be the lowest price on our website, because I have looked at some reports that show most people rent the cheapest unit on our websites. So I decided to take advantage of the fact that everyone wants to rent cheap units and fill up our units that we have a high vacancy in. And I would do it however low I need to do it. It's a 10 by 10 could be less than a 5 by 5 on the website.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Okay. I
Okay.
like that approach. And
Yeah.
it's a studied approach of, this is what I know I need to get rid of, and this is what I've seen from the evidence of prior rentals, and it's targeted to what you need. So many times I see websites where every single unit is 50% off for the first 3 months, and then it also says, oh, there's a waiting list for this one and there's only one left of this one. Then why the heck are you giving 3 months off when you have
Yes.
one unit left? That something's not right. Something is
Yep.
not adding up, because if you only have one unit, that sucker's valuable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't give away half your rent for 3 months just because. Make sure your discounts are targeted to the one size that you need to hit, and make sure that it has a deadline. This discount is going to end after 3 months, or
Yeah.
what, it has to have an end date. That's the last thing you want, is 50% off forever.
Well, and I will say this too. It's if somebody needs your last unit, they really don't care what the price is. Honestly,
Right.
they are going to click rent. And here's
Yeah.
a quick little story. The store I just took over, when I took it over, she was doing a 50% off 6 month special, 6 months. And so that was the first thing. I scrapped that when I got in there first day and turned on push rates even. And so that unit she had at $75, I think, for a 10 by 10, I ended up renting for 107 with no discount later that week. So
Yeah.
I would say it's not the discount that always gets them in the door either.
Right.
And you shouldn't, like Melissa said, don't discount all of your units.
Yes.
And, unless you're in lease up, unless you have 500 vacant units, I would say do whatever you need to do. But
Right. That's a different scenario you're talking about. Completely
Yes.
different
Yes.
scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't devalue yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well-
Roland's got good advice. I think it's tracking kind of what Denise you're saying here. Roland said managing each unit type as its own facility. This is done in hotels. Yeah, no, yeah, just because you have an abundance of 5x5 climate controls doesn't mean that your 10x10 drive ups are at the same level. So it's important to see what you have. And I think this goes back to, I think Melissa, you said it, like just being actively, someone should have an eyeball on all of this all the time. And I think that's great advice here. So John, related to rates, I guess, John says here in the Q&A, what frequency do you like to modify rates on the website? Are you doing them weekly? How often are y'all modifying rates on the website, or maybe just rates in general if you don't manage web rates versus standard rates separately? Would love to hear that.
Yeah, I look at everything at least once a week at every property.
And I would say I do the same. It's important to keep up with that. Especially you don't know what your competitors are doing if you're not keeping up with that either. So I would say I like to look at that about once a week too. And to be honest with you, most of the time, especially even for your frontline managers, a lot of managers sit through the day and they don't have that much to do. I mean, as a manager, there's always something to do. But I'm saying a lot of the
You
time,
just choose not to do it. I get it.
yes, there's nothing being done. And so,
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've walked into other competitors' offices and they're just sitting there. And, and that's something that they could even be doing, just checking the rates around. It doesn't take that long.
And another aspect to this would be if you're checking your competitor rates, say if your occupancy is not as high as your competitor. If you go to your competitor's website, their rates are $10 cheaper than yours, but they have a wait list for every unit. Why would you lower your rates to match them?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Incredible advice. Yeah.
Yep. And if you're not getting the traffic or your phone's not ringing, maybe you need to look at what your marketing's doing to see why it's not happening. Because
Exactly.
bottoming out your rates may not be the answer.
Right.
No.
So, yeah. All right, good stuff, guys.
Good nuance. Yeah.
Love
I think
this.
I know this is years and years and years of doing it wrong, probably.
Yeah. But you only know these things if you've got a human set
If
of
you're-
eyeballs that's looking
Yes.
at what are my competitors doing down the road? What am I doing? And how do those things compare all the time? So love it.
Amazing.
All right. We are now on reporting and management software. So tell us about that day-to-day software that you're using right now.
My favorite is District Manager. And I love the people over there too.
Okay.
It pulls data from SiteLink that SiteLink does not provide. I love it. But we use several different management software. SiteLink's the only one that is integrated with District Manager.
Okay. So what, just out of curiosity, what reports is it able to do that SiteLink doesn't do? Because I know SiteLink has like a gazillion reports, I feel like, in their data.
So it'll give you a valuation of each location based on square footage and income.
Oh, cool.
It will tell you if there are any ghost tenants. In your SiteLink reports, you have to go dig for that. Let me pull it up real quick because it's just loaded with a lot of information. Let me.
Well, while you're pulling that up, Kevin, why don't you talk to us about your software? What do you use while she's searching?
We use SiteLink for all of our reporting, everything. I might be biased because it's the only one I've used. I've fooled around in a few different softwares, but I would say SiteLink is it's hands down the best for us at least. I love it. I love all the reports that it pulls, all the data you get from it. It's just, to me, it's really simple to use. I have some that would argue with that, but for me, that's my favorite.
Okay.
Okay. And my favorite question that I've ever seen in the comment section here, what are ghost tenants?
So,
That is good.
yeah.
The best question that's ever been asked on Gabfocus in any medium. What are ghost
Yeah.
tenants?
It would even be better if it were Halloween, right?
I know, right?
Yeah, so that's just a potential unit that is they're paying cash. So maybe they're paying more than what the computer says they're paying, or someone that is continually moved out. It's a way to track inconsistencies with your rent roll, so to speak, without saying, theft, which I just
Yeah,
did, but
you're looking for
Oh,
theft. Yeah,
Yes.
there are
okay.
ways to hide tenants and to hide that income. And so that's really cool that it has specific reports that speak directly to that. That's awesome.
yeah, so I don't have to go looking. It's just right there for me.
Okay. That's
And
cool.
it analyzes all of the marketing, so it'll tell me if my storage pug or my spare foot or my Google ads, where the tenants are coming from and which avenue of marketing is working the best for me. So I mean, it really pulls a lot of
Cool.
information and provides data I would get nowhere else.
Wow.
Love
That's
it.
cool. So I put a link to it. So so Julie, thank you for asking. We all heard Denise say ghost tenants earlier, but you were the one to ask it. So thank you. Because I think that was that's a great feature, great list of people to get there. That's killer. Any other softwares beyond your management software? Any other softwares that y'all are using as we're thinking about processes and whether it's tenant relations or staffing, any other software that we haven't mentioned? We've mentioned a lot of softwares today between District Manager, Monday.com. I think Late to Lien was mentioned. I mean, we probably mentioned at least half a dozen so far today. But are there any other tools that are self-storage specific that y'all are using to help operate and manage facilities?
We use Ring Central for our remote managers. So I mentioned earlier about half of our properties are remote locations, and we have 5 remote managers that manage them. If one of them is out, instead of transferring the phone or forwarding the phone or forgetting to forward the phone,
Which is
Yeah.
we're able
sounds
to
like a
just
lesson learned.
yes, we're able to switch them in Ring Central, just take that one manager out of the queue and put the other one in. So we're really able to manage the phone lines for all of our locations through one program, and it's an app, Ring Central.
Yep. Easy to use.
We use something similar, Open Phone. I think I mentioned that the first part of this session, but we love Open Phone, and that's also how we communicate with our employees, teammates, and everything on there as well. Similar to what you said, you can forward the calls to others, or make sure it rings the next person, and so that's really helpful when you have several managers and sometimes you're tied up, and those customers that keep calling 5 or 6 times while you're on the other line with another tenant, it's very helpful if you can just have that forward over to the next caller, or the next team member.
And it tracks the calls coming in, it tracks the calls going out, it records the calls. I mean, it's really, to have a phone program other than AT&T cell phones, it makes a huge difference in how in tracking customer service and leads.
Yes. No, I think that's killer. I saw, I think the same thread that you commented on, Kevin. There's a gentleman on Facebook this week who was he hired his first employee, and his go-to, because he's not in this world, he just got a second Verizon phone. And he's like, well, how do I do this when the employee's part-time? This situation, like Denise was saying, like, what if they forget to forward the phone? It's like, well, there's actually softwares that make this, way easier than anyone's ever imagined. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm glad y'all are calling out these phone softwares.
Yeah, or they forward it to the wrong phone.
Oh,
that too. Yeah, and we in call potential, it has been mentioned in the comment section here, and that's a self-storage specific phone, call center software, that's actually gone way beyond just phones, but that's another tool to check out. What else was mentioned here? People are using Winsend, ESS, so there are a lot. I mean, I don't think self-storage is short on any kind of technology, which is actually kind of cool. If you walk down the vendor hall of any of these big conferences and trade shows, there are plenty of options. Rhonda asked, hey, what employee time tracking software are y'all using, or are you using employee time tracking software? I imagine this applies heavily to your hourly and part-time employees. So are y'all doing any kind of time tracking? If so, what tools are you using?
We use ADP.
Okay.
We do not use anything for that. We just log into SiteLink and it shows the time of login. So
Oh, there you go. Now, hey,
yeah, too.
the
Yeah.
honor system, baby, that works.
Yeah.
Not really the honor system, Tommy, because we pull our login history on SiteLink too. And we know where they clocked into ADP.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
That works. Paychex Flex and Gusto are other tools that people are using for time tracking. So,
Okay.
all great tips and tricks. Here's some more. Lenora says Connect Team is free for under 10 employees, which I imagine applies to a lot of facilities. And then Life 360 to track our location. Whoa, Rachel.
Wow.
Interesting.
Huh.
Okay. And Julie says that their locations are using ADP time clock as well. So no more punching in and out at home or down the road. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Life 360 to track location is interesting.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well,
Yeah.
do you have to let them track you if you track them?
No. You can turn off, because I do this for my kids. They don't know where I'm at, but I know where they are. So yeah, you can turn off your own tracking. And they can turn theirs off as well. At any time someone could stop doing that. So I mean, I guess that's, obviously with the employee permission, because they have to give permission for you to track them.
Right.
And they would just, I guess, turn it off at the end of the day. Huh. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
That's
Okay,
all.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to that's just it's very precise.
Yeah.
But a lot of the payroll companies do that too. If they allow clock in and clock out on their phone, they will use, the location on their phone, and they'll know, like you said, is it a down the street clock in? Because I'm sitting at the red light and I haven't quite gotten to work yet, but I'm going to clock in anyway and pretend like I did. So yeah, there's other ways, but yeah, Life 360 is interesting.
That is very interesting. Yeah. So, okay. So their company uses company cell phones, which makes it easier to track because they're provided by the company. So that totally makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there's one last thing about about processes and technology, and I think we were wrong. We're not going to make it through the end of the agenda, which is okay. We're going to have plenty of because we're going to be announcing our 2024 schedule hopefully in the next few weeks, so be on the lookout for that. But as we wrap up here, so there's a comment that a gentleman made. He watched he watched the most recent episode on security, and one comment he made that I thought was actually really he shared this with Chris on our team. I'll kind of just paraphrase here, but essentially he said that for larger operators, the routines of the managers, right, are the foundation of those storage businesses. Because at smaller companies, everyone, including the owner, has a very personal touch with the manager, and they kind of have a much better idea of what's going on, right? But once you get past 5, maybe 10 facilities, you you're not sitting in a high rise per se, but you are a little bit further removed from the day-to-day ops, right? So having really tight processes for the management is actually the foundation. So that was an interesting note. I think their brand, I think they run about 20 something facilities. So that was an interesting note. So with that in mind, talk to us about closing up for the day. What are the best practices? What do you all do at your facilities to wrap up for the day? And then maybe talk about some pitfalls and some things that you've learned along the ways that help run a better business as you're wrapping things up.
Yeah, I'm going to speak on a managed location, not a remote. I might throw in a little remote later, but just because your computer doesn't have a reverse overlock task, I say go through your payments to make sure that you or someone did reverse that overlock, or that you did log into the gate software and make sure it was updated. Last night I get home, my phone's blowing up. I've got a Google chat from a customer who can't get in. They paid 2 hours earlier. The manager's gone. The Google chat comes to me, and I don't know how to log into the gate software. So I have to bother Jason to get him to, and if the manager had just done what she was supposed to and log in to the gate software before she left, the whole thing could have been avoided. So make sure your overlocks are reversed, update your gate software if needed, and drive through your property, check your cameras, check the dumpster area. I mean, there's so many things that you need to do when you leave. And one of my favorite things for me to do every day is I have this, it's not a big sheet, okay? It's just a regular notepad. I rewrite my to-do list for the next day. So all day long, I'm marking stuff off. I know Kevin's putting it in his phone. I know. This is mine. It's okay. But I mark it off, and I am ready and fresh for the next day. So I've taken care of everything that needed to be taken care of. I've gone outside to make sure everything is the way it should be. And then I come back in and get ready for the next day. And then I leave.
Love that.
That's actually really cool. I love that. Yeah. And if you're able to, so, okay. I love that. How do you make sure that when you hire Billy Sue and Sally Jane, that they do it as well? What's your process for training those people to make sure that they care as much or do as thorough a job as Denise Boley would do?
Yeah. So we have to lead by example, which is why we make routine facility visits. I worked our pack mail store Monday. I swept the floor, cleaned the counter, packed boxes, waited on customers. We lead by example. We do what they do. They watch us and they're like, oh, wow, that's probably what I should be doing. Even though we've trained them to do it, we all work really hard and we lead by example.
Amen.
I love that.
Like that.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Very good.
Kevin, how about you, man? How do you close up over at Bob White? And I guess as you're onboarding newer facilities, and I know you kind of remotely manage some of them as well, kind of toss that in there. So what's your close up routine?
I am I'm a very organized person anyway, and so I go through and make sure all my emails have been answered that day. If not, I like to at least let that customer or whomever it is, if it's a vendor I'm working with, let them know I'll follow up with them the next day. Sorry, things got out of hand. I do like what Denise said, and that's one of those things that I haven't really had the time to do lately, but I do like to, right before you leave, at least drive around your property, make sure there's nothing out of place. Of course, hopefully you've done a property check during the day. But if you get in and do a property check first thing in the morning, that's an 8-hour day that something else could happen on your property. And if you don't catch it until the next day, you've got 24 hours of video footage you need to go back through and see when did that happen, what happened here. Just it's just that extra layer of care to add on top of at the end of the day, and make sure your property is taken care of. Make sure if you take cash and checks, I take checks and money orders. We don't do cash. Make sure that type of stuff adds up in your management software before you leave for the day. Our property software, our SiteLink, we have it set up to where it closes out at midnight automatically. That way, any payments that come in throughout the evening, they're closed on that same day. Make sure so when you get back in the morning and print out a daily close, you're not sitting there wondering where this extra $100 is on your report that you don't have in your drawer. And so I would say just making sure you pack that extra layer of care in, make sure everything is done for the end of the day, make sure you're ready to go so that when you come in the morning, you can start fresh.
Tommy, you mentioned how do you make sure that the new hires are doing these things? They need a list. You know, after you've been doing it for a while, you've kind of got that checklist in your head, but make sure new hires have an actual list of what do they need to look at. And it needs to be more than do a drive through of the property when you get there and make sure everything's okay. What are they supposed to be looking at? Because if you're new on the job, you don't know what that means.
They
You
all
know,
look
you
like
don't
doors to
know.
me.
Yeah. So be specific in your list, especially for the new hires, and then also have a list for the end of the day. Really, it should be the reverse of what you did to open the store. With the addition of check your emails and make sure that you followed up on everybody, and what Denise said of make your to-do list for the next day. Add that in there on your close day, but make sure there's a list, because even the most seasoned of managers, if you've had one of those days that just everything has blown up since lunchtime and it's now 6:30 and you're exhausted, it's been stressful, and I just need to get out the door, there might be things you forget because you don't have a list in front of you. So having a list handy is a huge help. So to everyone.
I would agree with that. Just hiring a new manager for Bob White, the store that I just finished managing, things become so mundane, and you just do it because you do it. And so sitting there training her for this new store, it really puts things into perspective of, okay, yes, why do we do this the way that we do this? What could we do to improve this that maybe I've just overlooked because I've done it this way for so long? I would say having a list that is super important.
Yeah.
That's killer. And
know,
Deanna, oh, go ahead, Denise. Yeah.
I think it's important to remember, if you have multiple properties, is try to have uniformity, but understand that each manager and each facility and each location is an individual. So uniformity while respecting individuality of each manager in each location. So my point is, I don't care how you get there, just get there. I can tell you how I get there, but you might not like, the 10,000 steps it takes me. So I think that's important too, is that don't micromanage where this is how you do it and this is what you do. Leave room for them to figure it out, because that's what makes them a good manager.
That's cool. Yeah, you've hired them for a reason, right? You hope that they have high competency and high care and high EQ. No, that's great advice too. Indiana, speaking of care, she says here, we always leave a note for the person coming in the next day if it's not us. Then they know if there are any issues that come up or customers that had questions or comments. So that's a great way of doing it. So we got a couple Q&A that's unrelated to this topic, but I'd love to ask them anyways. So Nathan, I saw your comment earlier about, why would you have a web rate and a standard rate? But I think this is an interesting question here. It's a more nuanced one. And it's, if a competitor is offering a web rate of $50 per month and the in-store price is $103, but the website says they only have one unit left, why offer that big of a discount? Will they raise the renter's rate up to 103 within a couple months? Why would someone do that?
I don't know that they would. I mean, I wouldn't. If I offered a 10 by 10 for $50 on a web rate, I would not raise the rent over 50%. I just would not do it.
Yeah.
It would take me at least 2.5 years to get that rate where it needs to be. And when I lowered that web rate, I knew what I was doing. You know, I had a plan for
Yeah.
doing it.
Mhm.
And Tommy, who knows? Maybe there's owners out there who adjust their inventory to make people think there's only one unit left.
There's that too. Yeah. Nathan, I'll say this, because we track over 1,500 facilities that rent units through the platform. And I'll say this, not every owner is Denise Boley and not every manager is Kevin Mullis.
Very true.
There are I love all my pug pack, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of set it and forget it type people, and because they're busy. I'm not, it's not even an indictment or a shame or a judgment. I think everyone gets busy. I do set it and forget it things, and I regret it later myself. So I feel it, right? So it's probable that this person, if this is a website that you've seen out there in the wild, that it's probable that that owner set up this discount, this web rate, and just never had a rule to turn it off after a certain occupancy, or didn't know that they could control discounts based on occupancy. So so it's either they set it and forget it and they totally forgot, or they didn't know that technology can be used to help them, where you can turn off a discount after a certain occupancy or a certain number of units left. So yeah, so I think Denise's answer is perfect. Like, you wouldn't do this, but if they were to do this, it's probably a situation where I think they said it and forgot it. Kevin, do you have a take on it?
I've seen REITs do that a lot, and I have never understood why either. To me, my only logic with it is if it's an in-store rate, if they have a customer that is sitting right there in front of them, maybe they could get them in. If it's someone that's, hey, I need this unit right now, that would be my only logical thinking for it. But ethically, I would not do the same thing either.
Yeah. You know, and I can tell you, Tommy, that if your standard rate is $150 and your web rate is 50, the valuation of your asset is based on your standard rate, not your web rate. That's a discount. So it does come into play at some point, but your standard rates are what the banks are looking at first.
Well, there you go. So yeah, it gets more nuanced than that. And then Melissa, you want to ask this very last broad question
Yeah.
here? It's summer. It sounds like you're about to get into a new facility, which pre-congratulations, but
Yeah.
love to see what our speakers say to this.
Yeah, we have a brand new facility. In y'all's experience, what is the typical time frame for leasing, and what is considering a positive what is considered to be a positive occupancy? With that being said, what percentage occupancy is the goal? Obviously 100, but you know what I mean. So, any thoughts? Comments?
How many units are there?
Doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
Summer, if you're still, I think you're still in the audience. I see you in the audience. Yeah, if you could put in the comment section there the number of units, and because I do think that okay, 170 units. Perfect. Thank you, Summer.
Okay. I would think relatively 18 to 24 month lease up, in my opinion, based on experience.
Yeah, and for many of us, summer 100% occupancy isn't actually the goal we're shooting for.
No.
It's been the reality that we've had over the last couple of years, but that's not actually where we want to be. Usually somewhere in that low 90 range is actually our sweet spot, because we want turnover. We want that in and out customer, because we have month-to-month leases, we have monthly rate increases. So to have that turnover is actually really healthy for the way our business model is designed. So don't think that 100% has to be your goal, because it's really not, which I know sounds really counterintuitive, but
Yeah. There was a study done. I think public storage aims for 92%. I have some clients who aim for 85%. And Roland here in the comments says 92 to 95. Julie says 95. So it really depends on how you make the numbers work. And honestly, Summer, if you can put in the comment section, like, oh, if you did a feasibility study, or if you put a performa together for the bank, what did you what did you hope for? But I think 18 to 24 months is a solid lease up period for 170 units. And again, of course, there are other factors here, right? Where you're located, number of competition, the type of storage units you offer, right? Climate versus drive up versus parking. They all have different lease up timelines. But so yeah, there you go. Kevin, I know you've helped the Case family with a handful of facilities. Have you been any part of like a brand new lease up with those guys?
Never brand new. We've done expansions, but I've
Expansions.
never taken one from the ground up. So
Okay. Well, there you have it. Yeah. So Summer, best
maybe
of
one
luck.
day.
Yeah. So Summer says, thank you. I'm brand new to all of this. I wanted good information for the owners when asked. There you go. Tell the
Good.
owners 18 to 24% or months. That's awesome. All right, y'all. So we're heading into the final stretch here, and let's talk about the question of the week. When it comes to day-to-day operations, what sets an average operator apart from a great operator? What makes a great operator operate so much better than the average Joe? Denise, I'm going to start with you.
Obviously playing offense instead of defense and being involved. You know, I could go hang out at the beach and just put everything on autopilot, but we would just, if we were lucky, we would only be a good operator. But when you've got owners, administrators, and managers all working together, getting ahead of any potential issues, that's when greatness can happen.
I like it.
That's great. Kevin, how about you? What makes you a great operator versus an average one?
I would say it's having good owners at the top, great owners at the top, and it funnels down all the way to your day-to-day managers. One thing, it's like Denise said earlier, training your employees on why we do things a certain way, but giving them at the same time that room for growth. That's one thing that was given to me that has really helped me out tremendously. Storage isn't a one size fits all business. There's a lot of businesses that aren't one size fits all. But if you sit there and, have someone in a chokehold, this is how we're doing it, this is why you do it this way, they're just going to be a generic day-to-day operator. They'll never be anything great. And so I would say what's really made our company what it is today is just that flexibility to try different things out and see what works and what doesn't for us.
That's awesome, man. Melissa, I'm going to ask you the question. What do you think sets average from great away from average?
Really, I think it's a combination of what both of them just said, and it kind of goes back to good training, good training and good equipping for your management team that are actually having to put your practices to, make them a reality. They have to have the tools that they need to be able to do those well. They need to know the why behind the procedures. I agree, Denise, giving them the room to grow on their own and develop their own way. You may even find that they have a better way than the way other people have been doing it. And you can say, hey guys, guess what? Susie over here came up with this solution for this thing we've been doing, and it saves us, so many hours a week, or, but you're only going to do that by the manager actually understanding what the end goal is supposed to be and why it needs to be a certain thing so that they can develop. And that's what I was trying to say with the something as simple as a walkthrough checklist. If they don't know what they're supposed to be looking for, what are they looking for? You have green doors. Yep. Everything's still green today. I don't know what to say. It looks good. So giving them the understanding behind what it is you're trying to accomplish, whether that is with rate management or, how clean the property is supposed to be or how you answer the phone, they need to know what your goal is so that they can meet it and hopefully surpass it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always think like the best operators or the best companies, right? They have a strong bias towards like hiring really good people. And I think, of course, that transcends self-storage, but I think within the self-storage industry in particular, the companies that do really, really well have high standard for the kind of people they want to bring in, the kind of people they want at the front desk, the kind of people they want to answer the phones, the kind of people who do their accounting or their marketing, right? I think the really high caliber companies have a bias to really bring on really, really good people.
Yeah.
So y'all, that's beautiful. Thank you for coming back for a pop-up event. Everyone, thanks for sticking around. Of course, we've got next week, we've got another show, but before we get there, talk to us, Denise. How can people find you if they want to learn more about how you operate or how you can help their storage business?
So selfstoragescience.com is our website. Denise at selfstoragescience.com is my email. I mean, you could probably go on Google and send me a chat like the rest of everybody else. Go to Facebook. No, I don't have a Facebook, but however you contact me is fine. I answer all avenues.
There you go. So one thing that we didn't get to in this episode, but I believe we touched on in past episodes, Denise, what does self-storage science actually do?
We own 5 of our own locations, and we're a third-party property management company, and we manage 65 locations as of today, about 3.5 million square feet of net rentable self-storage space.
65,
Yeah,
Denise. So proud of
and
y'all.
we do consulting. I'm pretty much the one that does the consulting, feasibility studies, market surveys. Just, if someone wants to pay me to just talk to me every other day, I do that too. But we have to help with site, identify sites for potential development. Since 1993, I've seen a lot. So
lots of experience there, and I think bringing on the experiences of other owners through the management service, and then of course your own after owning 5, that's a ton of valuable conversations there. So Denise, thank you for sharing some of that with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We love you. And then Kevin over at Bob White Self Storage, man. So tell us a little bit about, I know that you don't offer consulting services, but if any of the managers want to aspire to become Kevin Mullis, how should they reach out to you?
That's a low goal, but
no way. You just got manager of the year.
Manager of the year, dog.
Well, thank you. You can reach me at bobwhiteselfstorageoffice@gmail.com. Or you can give me a call or text me at my cell phone. It's 478-662-2115.
All right. Awesome, man. Yeah. No, I think you're one of the cool ones, and I think you operate very well. And I know Eric and Steve, the Case fan, I know they I know they feel very proud and honored to have you be their manager. So thank you. And we're proud and honored to have you come join us here today, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So of course, this episode and all episodes are available storagebug.com/resources in our resource center, where you'll find videos and downloads. Join us on our Facebook group, and of course, the Gabfocus Self Storage podcast, which I believe Melissa and Josh published an episode this week that touches on some of the topics that we talked about today. So be sure to check that out. And then our very next Gabfocus is as far away as next Thursday. So we're going to do our year in review. It's going to be a little party. We're going to talk about all the things that happened in 2023 in self-storage land, all the things that we hope to happen that maybe didn't happen, and then all the things that we can expect to happen in 2024. Melissa and I are bringing on some old Gabfocus veterans and a surprise, amazing surprise visit Jenny Sutton, the executive director of the Texas Association for 26 years. This is her retirement party, so we're excited to have her join us for probably her last Gabfocus. As I'm sure she's gonna, we can't get rid of Jenny. She's gonna stick around, but on paper, at least she's retiring. And so we're excited to have her come join us. So yeah, so be there next Thursday. It's going to be at the normal time of 2:00. So Melissa and I don't have to text each other and say, hey, is it 2 or 3 today?
Yeah, I was totally ready at 2:00 today, just so y'all know.
I was too. And then I was like, and I looked at my calendar, I was like, hey, Garrett, it says 3. Is that right? And Garrett was right. So, but y'all, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your Thursdays. Enjoy your weekends, and we will see y'all next Thursday.